Welcome to the Silver Nitrate Witches Movie Review Brew, the podcast where we talk about how we talk about movies. And we are your Silver Nitrate Witches. I'm Isabel Lang. I'm an academic editor, poet, and tarot reader.
And I'm Laura Valenza. I'm co-film editor at the Brooklyn Rail, and I recently gave a TEDx talk on the movie But I'm a Cheerleader. And if Elle Woods is a natural blonde, then I'm like totally a natural witch.
Yes! Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. Very topical for today. Do you want to explain to the people why we're talking about Elle Woods, the good people, our dear listeners, why Elle Woods is topical today and what we're going to be doing this season?
Yes. So I guess it was a couple months ago now, but I was listening to one of me and Belle's favorite podcasts, American Hysteria, and they were doing a 2-part special on fascism, and the second part was, I should look up the professor, well, put it in the show notes, the professor's name who was the guest. He was really great, but he talks about how education and access to education is so essential to fighting fascism and why people who want to promote fascism would attack universities and schools. So everyone must do their part to stand against fascism, and you're going to have to decide if that's a side part or a middle part. But jokes aside, we're going to do so by talking about movies about school in this second season. So we're all going to go to Harvard this summer.
What? Like it's hard?
Yeah. Anybody can get into Harvard. And Harvard feels particularly timely, especially for the inspiration of this second season, because it's been in the news a lot. If you just look it up in the New York Times, some of the most recent headlines are about how the Trump administration halts Harvard's ability to enroll international students. And basically the next day, the big headline was Harvard sued the Trump administration.
Snaps for Harvard!
Snaps for Harvard! So the Silver Nitrate Witches are opening our summer school grimoire. And we're flipping to the chapter on Legally Blonde because we object to fascism.
Yes, we feel comfortable using legal jargon in everyday life.
Yes, we do. And in extraordinary circumstances of our time.
Oh, God. So where are we beginning?
We're going to begin with the basics. So Legally Blonde came out in 2001. It was directed by Robert Luketic. He's Australian, and he also directed The Ugly Truth with Katherine Heigl, and I'm blanking on the actor Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah.
And he also directed the movie 21.
Oh.
With, oh my god, the hottie I love from across the universe.
Jim Sturgis.
Yes. I did not actually love that movie. I liked The Ugly Truth. I was not really into 21.
I was weirdly into 21.
Really?
I don't remember what. Yes, just because of Jim Sturgis. So, like, he had a real moment in Hollywood at that time where, like, because he'd done Across the
Universe. Also, for further context, Bella's originally from the greater New Orleans area, and I am a Jersey girl who's currently based in New York City. So, if you've had references to North and South jokes, that's why. Oh, which will come up in this episode, actually. So, important context.
Yeah.
So, 21 was a later movie, though. I actually think Legally Blonde was Luketic's first feature film, I think, was actually Legally Blonde, though, and it was written by Karen McCullough and Kirsten Smith, who are writing partners. And I'm not positive that Kirsten Smith was McCullough's partner on all of these, but I think she might have been. But I'm going to read you some of their credits because I think you're going to be pretty excited, Belle. But
okay.
They wrote 10 Things I Hate About You, Ella Enchanted, The House Bunny, another great going to school movie.
Oh my god, yes! Natalie!
Oh my god. Sorry. God, my freshman year of college, everybody was just doing that voice.
Yeah. It was a time to be alive.
They wrote The Ugly Truth.
Mhm.
And She's the Man.
Nice. So a good chunk of my, developmental teenage years were written by these two women.
Karen McCullough and Kirsten Smith gave Belle and I our childhoods.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Kirsten Smith is also a novelist.
Oh.
I know. And Legally Blonde is based on a novel by Amanda Brown.
I did know that. I saw it out of Books A Million once. That's something to date everybody. Whew. And I decided not to buy it, and I've regretted that ever since. And I want to read that.
And you can never get it anywhere now.
Wait, really?
No, I'm just kidding. I just meant you
God.
can always go find it.
You got me so sad.
No, I'm sure you can find this book.
Okay. I'm going to look it up when we're done. Okay.
Okay. So, who's in Legally Blonde? Well, Reese Witherspoon. And at this point, Reese Witherspoon was not the major actress that we knew her for. She was known for kind of a few smaller, more indie movies like Election, which is also Matthew Broderick, and Pleasantville. I love that movie.
She was in Friends for a little bit as well. She was one of Rachel's sisters. So she did a few episodes of Friends.
Yeah. So she was in a lot of smaller things. She's in some other movies that are going to be referenced in the reviews we're going to read. They actually sound really intriguing. I'm very curious to go back to really old school Reese Witherspoon. But then she's in much bigger movies like Sweet Home Alabama and Wild. And most recently she's in The Morning Show. And then her big thing now, though, is the Sunshine Book Club, right? That's what it's called? She runs her little book club.
Oh, the Reese Witherspoon Book Club? Is it called the Sunshine Book Club?
I think it's called the Sunshine Book Club. I could be wrong. But anyway, she's really championing literature, which is good. Yeah. I like anybody who champions books. And so some of her other co-stars in this movie are Luke Wilson, her love interest, who is in Idiocracy. Which we're now all living. And
well, no, because we would be in a much better place if we had Terry Crews as a president.
That's actually a great point. Idiocracy at this point is better than the world we're living in. So think about that. If you still have a brain to think with. Yeah, and then he was in a bunch of Wes Anderson movies too, like Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore.
The Wilson brothers are in a lot of Anderson movies.
Yes, brother to Owen Wilson. Wow.
Wow.
And then shout out to Jennifer Coolidge of White Lotus fame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then we also have Selma Blair, who plays Reese Witherspoon's rival. And I found out that Selma Blair and Witherspoon were actually also in a movie called Cruel Intentions before Legally Blonde came out, too. So they've been in a movie together before. And Selma Blair is also in the John Waters movie A Dirty Shame.
I didn't know that.
And she also appears to be blonde these days. And then also, just want to give a shout out to the law professor who kind of saves the day at the end of the movie and encourages Elle to keep going when she wants to give up, played by Holland Taylor, who is a character actress who I'm sure many of you would recognize if you don't know her name. But I was going through her credits, one of the ones that I recognized her from was she's Truman's mom in The Truman Show.
Oh, I've never actually seen The Truman Show.
You've never seen The Truman Show?
I'm so sorry. No, I haven't. I know. In current pop culture news, you may recognize Holland Taylor as Sarah Paulson's girlfriend.
In what?
In Life.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. It's adorable. It's weirdly adorable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing it right now, and it's weirdly adorable in my mind. So that's great. Cute. I love that.
Sarah Paulson talks about her in interviews and it just makes jokes about how much older she likes her women. It's so funny.
I was gonna say, when you said that, I was like, isn't Sarah Paulson a lot younger than her? But great. Good for them. Yeah. So Legally Blonde was rated PG-13 for profanity and sexual references and is a tight 96 minutes long. And I personally think it hails from the golden era of comedies and romantic comedies. So, shall we get into a summary of the movie?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it begins with Elle
Sun's up. It's a little after 12. That's, I think, as much as I could do. But
the iconic song that starts and
Perfect day.
ends the movie. And we start at CULA. I don't know why we could use Harvard's real name, but we couldn't use UCLA.
This happens all the time. I don't know what it is and like why some universities there's no problem with naming the real thing and in others it's not.
Yeah, so life is pretty good for Elle at CULA. She's president of her sorority. Everybody seems to love her. She really looks great in pink, and she's pretty sure that Warner Huntington III, played by Matthew Davis, is going to propose. But it turns out...
Well, I would like to also add in that she has a 4.0 GPA.
She does. And she's majoring in fashion merchandising.
That's basically like marketing or whatever. I would just like to point out that Elle Woods is an insanely smart person, and a lot of times when we describe this movie, we forget that.
And I think that it's... Well, I mentioned fashion merchandising because I want to bring up an early scene, because I think something that a lot of these like critics kind of forget when they talk about this movie is that Elle's intelligence is emphasized like from the beginning of the movie. In that scene where she's picking out the perfect dress to get proposed to by Warner Huntington III. The sales clerks at the store, she has her own like big mistake, huge moment, because the sales clerks at the store try to like pass off some last season outfit for like the full price because they're like, she's just a dumb blonde. And then she like totally schools them in like,
you can't do a half loop stitch on low viscosity rayon. It'll pucker. Or it'll snag the fabric. And you didn't just get this in. I saw it in last May's Vogue.
Wow, I'm like really impressed that you could actually do that whole line, but yes.
I watched this movie way too much. We had exactly, when DVDs became a thing, we had exactly 2 DVDs in our house. One was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and the other was Legally Blonde.
That's a vibe shift. Turns out she gets dumped by Warner instead of proposed to. He's looking for a Jackie, not a Marilyn.
You're breaking up with me because I'm too blunt?
Are my boobs too big?
I encourage you, next time you watch this movie, to just look at Warner's face in that scene when she starts hysterically crying.
I love a hysterical crying scene, too.
As a family growing up, this was one of our favorite moments in the movie. We would all just start cackling at the look on his face, because she would start kind of like screech crying, and he just made this face, and it's glorious.
Rewatching that scene, I was kind of thinking about, what's the really famous feminist theorist who wrote Throwing Like a Girl?
Oh, I don't
Okay,
know.
she's really famous. We'll put that in the show notes, too. But no, now I have to look it up. I'm sorry. Iris Marion Young was a feminist theorist who wrote... Can you hear that in the background? That car alarm? Okay, it stopped. We're good. Okay. Again, I'm in New York City.
New York, New York, you busy, dizzy, razzle-dazzle, scandalous place.
And I'm in the quietest apartment we could be in, So Iris Marion Young was a feminist theorist who wrote this seminal text called Throwing Like a Girl that talks about how women are taught basically not to take up space. And so I had this thought watching this movie where it's like, I feel like women, you know, quote unquote, making a scene in public is kind of like a feminine, non-physical way of taking up space. And it makes men really uncomfortable because they're the ones who feel like they should take up space, not women.
Yes. Mm-hmm. She's making him feel appropriately shitty for what he's doing to her, because it's not like, you know, this is going to be long distance and that will be hard, and it's not like, you know, I am so sorry, but I just don't feel that way about you anymore. It is, I need to date someone who's going to make me and my family look good, and that's not you. He should feel appropriately shitty about that. And she's making him do so in the taking up space and the screaming.
And then she decides to try to walk home, and she refuses to get in the car with him until he points out that she's going to ruin her shoes, which, you know, gotta save the shoes. Continuing with our plot summary. So Elle decides to win Warner back. She's going to get into Harvard Law School too. And okay, I'm going to close the window.
Okay.
Elle decides in order to get Warner, she's going to get into Harvard Law School too. Sorry, I can just like still hear it and it's now like throwing off my ability to focus because it just keeps going off. So I don't think that there's going to be anything we can do. Like if your car is that sensitive, pay for garage parking. Okay, so anyway, Elle decides that she's going to get into Harvard too, like Warner, and she's going to prove that Marilyn is just as smart as Jackie. And we have a wonderful little montage of all of her sorority sisters supporting her in studying for the LSATs, and she ends up getting like an insanely high score on the LSAT.
Oh my God. I remember, because all I remember is, so in the movie, she has to get at least like a 172 or something.
I think it's 170.
170, and she gets a 175. And I remember
she gets a 179.
179. Some of the details I may inadvertently get mixed up with the musical, which I have also watched a lot of. Anyway, so the point is she gets a high score just like above the bare minimum of what's required, but like Harvard as a law school requires a very high score. Like some folks that I know who went to like law schools at state universities down here, the bar is like 140,
which I think her very first test she scored like 143, and she's disappointed in herself, but like it's definitely like that was already a decent score.
She is very smart, and she works very hard at academics, and I think it's really often covered up in like the cute little montage and the puffy pink stuff and the fluffy pencils and everything, but goddamn, she's so smart. So she kicks ass on the LSATs.
It's the brilliant conceit of this movie that she's really, really smart, but also really into pink and being blonde and manicures.
And you can do both.
You can do both. I don't know if you can have it all, but you can have perfect hair, perfect nails, and a perfect GPA.
There you go. There you go.
So she goes to Harvard after making a fantastic video about how she's comfortable with using legal terms in everyday life.
Everyday life.
And how she can recall details very easily, like what happened in Days of Our Lives.
Do you remember what happened on Days of Our Lives yesterday? Why, yes, Margot, I do. I don't remember the details, but yes, that's such a good bit.
And I believe that bit is while they're wearing sequined bikinis in a pool.
And floating around a pool, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I love when they cut to all the really stuffy, boring old men in black suits staring at the video screen. Mm-hmm. So she goes to Harvard, she stuns Warner, and guess what? It turns out it's actually pretty hard. And so she kind of gets taken down a peg by her professor, Holland Taylor. But Elle is not one to be defeated. So, and also at this point, she goes to a nail salon and meets Jennifer Coolidge, and they become best friends. And Jennifer Coolidge is like, "You're perfect. You have to have it all. Otherwise, there's no hope for the rest of us."
Mm-hmm. If you can't hang on to a man, there sure as hell ain't hope for the rest of us.
Elle decides that she's going to give it another chance, but she's also really struggling personally because she's used to having lots of friends, and everybody is really mean to her here, especially Selma Blair, or Vivian Kensington, who is Warner's old high school sweetheart turned new fiance and is his Jackie with her lovely brunette hair.
She's got a 3-carat Harry Winston on her bony, unpolished finger.
Thank you, Belle. Vivian is pretty mean to Elle because she sees her as a rival, and so she plays some mean tricks on her, but all it ends up doing is making Elle want to work that much harder, and basically Elle ends up kicking ass and ends up saving the day in a murder trial at the end of the movie. And she also gets Luke Wilson, the young lawyer who is part of her legal team for the murder trial. and she graduates top of her class and is the speaker at the graduation ceremony. And that's my summary of Legally Blonde. I'm sure we'll get into a lot more details soon, but time for the reviews. I actually thought what we could do is go through the reviews chronologically today. So we're looking at reviews specifically from July 2001, which is the month the movie was released. And it was released on July 13th. So it's actually kind of fun to go through these reviews chronologically and see sort of the build-up before the movie comes out and then the responses once it does come out. So the very first article I found from that month was in the Daily Herald of Chicago on July 2nd. So the movie's not out yet. This is kind of more of a context situation. So this article is called "Studios Use Imaginative Gimmicks to Promote Movies on the Internet."
Oh my god, it's so 2001.
Do you want to take a guess about what some of these imaginative gimmicks were, Belle?
Oh god, no. They're not pop-ups, are they?
I'm sure some of them were.
God, I have no idea. Is it a website?
So I just pulled out like 3 of the key parts from this article. So it starts with Michael Van Gorkum remembers the first call he got from the robot. Quote, "It was a real person's voice," quote, the 26-year-old Santa Monica resident said. Quote, "Very freaky," end quote. Phone calls from robots, emails from someone called Mother, and cryptic instant messages are just some of the intrusive elements of a web-based game being used to market the Steven Spielberg movie AI, Artificial Intelligence. The movie debuted Friday. So skipping ahead a little bit, the article goes on to say, today studios spend $40,000 to $500,000 on elaborate games, behind-the-scenes footage, and live webcasts to lure hardcore web users. The same people, research shows, who rush to see movies on opening weekend and spend millions on related merchandise. Are they just saying nerds?
They might be.
Yeah, so skipping ahead to the part about Legally Blonde, it says, studios are experimenting with various ways on the web to get fans interested in the movie months before it opens. The efforts include simple gimmicks such as the, quote, blonde translator, end quote, on the site to promote Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's new movie, Legally Blonde. Type in the phrase, "I love you," and the translator, sponsored by the, quote, Blonde Legal Defense Club, end quote, suggests the alternative. I am, like, so totally into you.
Oh my god.
And in case you're wondering, no, the blonde translator does not exist anymore, but I might have found a way to resurrect it. And we're going to get back to that at the end of the episode. So if you stay with us,
oh my god,
there's going to be a little blonde translator treat. That I have planned.
This is ridiculous.
oh, Belle, you have no idea. All right, so this next article came out July 5th. It was also in the Daily Herald, Chicago, Illinois, and still before the movie's release. So again, we're going to get kind of another article talking around it, but I find these like really interesting because I think it kind of reveals the mood that this movie entered the scene with. And just another note too, like we've noticed with all of these episodes, some of these articles appear again and again in different newspapers. So I found this one in the Chicago Daily Herald on July 5th. It's called "Tracing the Roots of Society's Blonde Ambitions" by Bert Constable. Article starts out kind of stupid, but I actually think it makes some really interesting points.
Okay, we'll give Bert a chance.
Yeah, so Bert writes, "I married a blonde. That statement is not a boast. Neither is it an admission. Frankly, it may not even be the truth. Depending on the season, the lighting, and the mood of the observer. My wife's hair has been classified as strawberry blonde, honey blonde, dishwater blonde, rude by who, mousy brown, and plain old blonde. Her driver's license originally listed her hair color as blonde, then registered her under the ambiguous category of dark blonde, and now, realizing the whimsical folly of it all, doesn't even include a hair color category. Not that any of that matters one whit. If asked to list the attributes that made me fall and remain in love with my wife, hair color would not make the top 100. Yet. Yeah, good job, Bert.
Yeah. Correct answer.
Yes. Then don't call her dishwater blonde either.
Yeah. Dishwater blonde, dirty blonde, and mousy brown. I've never understood why those are things that, like, actual, like, terms for hair categories. That's so
I
typical.
kind of like dirty blonde. If you say it the right way.
Yeah. Dirty pop. Sorry.
Not that Belle or I have blonde hair.
No, we were both very dark haired.
Yeah. Anyway, Bert continues, yet, as a society, we still seem to possess an emotional attachment to the word blonde. Play the word association game with the word blonde, and you get responses ranging from bombshell and beautiful to bimbo and brainless. Literally would never have thought of those things, but okay. Okay, Bert.
Dumb blonde jokes were a pretty large lexicon at this point in my life, and in childhood especially. We had a rule that you could tell dumb blonde jokes. My dad had a rule that you could tell a dumb blonde joke, but the dumb character had to have your hair color. So, like, you could say the joke, but, like, it was just about, like, a dumb person, not a dumb blonde. So, like, I could tell dumb blonde jokes, but the dumb character would have to be a brunette.
That's actually kind of like an interesting parenting technique coming from Tommy Lang.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bert continues, using hair color as a clue to one's character and psychological makeup makes about as much sense as horoscopes that categorize folks by birthdays. Can I just point out, like, so far, how is any of this worthy of publication in a newspaper?
I know, we've gone, like, isn't, like, don't bury the lead, like, a pretty important part of journalism? Like, we've had all these words so far, and we have not gotten to the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we haven't seen the movie yet at this point in time, so we're just pulling shit out of our ass.
For real, yeah. Well, surely the press would have seen the movie, have seen, like, screeners. Or...
I don't know if they would have gone screeners yet.
Or there would be a press junket.
I don't remember if it's the next article or the one after, but we are going to get to an article that's clearly before the theatrical release, but the critic did see it. I don't know if this early in the month people had seen it yet, because I think sometimes studios with these really big movies are, like, pretty protective of them until they're released.
That's fair.
So Bert continues, under the rules of stereotypical logic, Martha Stewart and Pamela Anderson would be blonde soul sisters, while Peter Frampton and... I forgot about how bad this article is. While Peter Frampton and Adolf Hitler would have more in common than their April 20th birthdays and brief flirtations with world dominance.
Oh my god.
Bert.
Bert.
We're losing more than we're winning here.
No, maybe no.
In her book, Blonde Like Me, The Roots of Blonde Myth in Our Culture, author... there going to be a lot of puns in this episode. Author Natalia Ilian traces our fascination with all things blonde to the ancient Greeks. The sun god Apollo was the first fair-haired boy, and his wild child yet virginal twin, the moon goddess Artemis, was the original Sister Goldenhair surprise. Other legendary blondes include Goldilocks, Cinderella, and Godiva. As for nonfiction, I hesitate to say real blondes, Mae West and her dirty blonde appeal helped... I read that one wrong. And her dirty blonde appeal helped shape the public's feelings about blondes at the start of the last century. The title character in the comic strip Blondie debuted in 1930 as a flighty, golden-haired gold digger who dated many men, including the wealthy but bumbling Dagwood Bumstead. They fell in love, Dagwood was disinherited, and today's Blondie is smarter, nicer, and drawn sexier than she was 71 years ago. Movie actress and sex siren Jean Harlow brought the term platinum blonde to the big screen. Smiling Carol Channing helped cement the dumb blonde in American culture with her stage performance in the 1949 Broadway musical Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. This gave birth to the 1953 screen version starring Marilyn Monroe as the formulaic blonde most preferred. While all the above did something for, or perhaps to, blondes and their image, Shirley Polikoff is the woman who made America blonde. Polikoff is the advertising whiz who dropped the blonde bomb on America on behalf of Clairol hair color. Beginning in 1955, when she first posed the suggestive question, does she or doesn't she? Polykoff pulled off the difficult task of maintaining that legacy, linking blondes with something a tad naughty, while making the concept of a blonde housewife acceptable to a nation that liked Ike. Polykoff also coined the catchphrases, "Is it true blondes have more fun?" and "If I only have one life, let me live it as a blonde." According to her online biography, Polykoff thought every woman should have the right to be what she wanted, i.e. blonde, yet this voice of female empowerment turned down salary increases because, quote, "she always felt that a woman should never make more than her husband," end quote. Shirley! We need to talk. Anyway, Bert continues, "A half century later, we've gone beyond the money issue, but the
Have we? Have we, Bert?
But the blonde baggage remains on our doorstep. Monday has been dubbed National Blonde Day as part of a publicity campaign from the movie Legally Blonde about a blonde who goes from LA to Harvard in her fight against that dumb blonde stereotype. Perhaps the movie will close the book on blondes and we can move on to more pressing concerns, such as whether my wife's eyes are blue, green, or hazel. Bert, you should know what color your wife's eyes are."
Yeah. There is a difference.
Yeah. So I thought the history lesson in there was kind of interesting. The rest of it I could have lived without. I don't know. Like, it seems like people are putting a lot of weight on these blonde stereotypes.
I mean, there is a lot. I mean, there's not a lot about that in the movie. There are references to that sort of thing. Like the beginning, you know, there's nothing, the salesperson who's like, "There's nothing I like more than a dumb blonde with daddy's plastic." And, later, when she tries to join the study group, she's like, "What is this, like an RSVP thing?" And they go, "No, it's like a smart people thing." And later, she has a very a surprisingly vulnerable talk with Luke Wilson's character about how she has been discriminated against as a blonde. But then he comes back with the fact that she holds more power than she thinks she does, which she then exhibits later on, using her blonde powers for good.
Because I feel like we can kind of make the dumb blonde joke or make fun of the blonde stereotypes, because at the end of the day, people who are white women with blonde hair probably do actually get a lot more privileges than most. Actually, I think there have been studies about that. Well, I mean, obviously, like, the white thing is true, but I think there have been studies specifically about blonde white women.
There's definitely some pretty privilege, I think, in there. I wouldn't necessarily attribute it to blonde, but for sure pretty privilege and, you know, white privilege. And also, she is privileged. Like, her family is quite wealthy.
Yes. Yeah, which I think is part of what makes the conceit of this movie humorous, is because the stakes aren't too high for her. You know,
yes.
It can be a fun, humorous movie. I did want to, and I don't know if I can find it because this is a very long book, but my film critic Bible, From Reverence to Rape, The Treatment of Women in the Movies by Molly Haskell. There's a really great part where she actually talks about the blonde versus brunette stereotype in Hollywood and how this basically goes back to the earliest days of Hollywood history. And it changes over time. Like, there's moments where the blonde is considered the sweet, angelic one, and the brunette is the dangerous vamp or femme fatale. And then there's other moments where that switches, and the blonde is the sexy, dangerous bombshell, and the brunette is the mousy, sweet, good woman.
Even just in the movies we've talked about, we can see that switch, because in Grand Hotel, the blonde is the Greta Garbo, the ballerina, and the brunette is the... Oh my god, what's her name? Joan Crawford, Jesus. But then later in This Our Life, we have Bette Davis as the blonde vamp and Olivia de Havilland as the, you know, brunette, quiet housewife character. So yeah, even in just what we've talked about already, we've seen that flip happen.
Exactly. And then if you get into more contemporary stuff too, like, you know, a filmmaker like David Lynch is normally very intentionally playing with those tropes in his movies. There's frequently a blonde woman and her brunette counterpart, and what their roles are flip-flops in a way that sort of mirrors Hollywood's history of engagement with blondes and brunettes. And, you know, maybe like the most accessible example is Laura Palmer versus Audrey Horne in Twin Peaks. So with that note, I have more blonde stories for you.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so this next article still predates opening weekend for Legally Blonde. It's written by Todd McCarthy. It's from Variety, and it came out on July 6th. So McCarthy writes, the Blonde Anti-Defamation League has found its standard bearer in Legally Blonde. I think they're making fun of like the Anti-Defamation League, and they're just turning into the Blonde Anti-Defamation League.
Okay.
Anyway, Legally Blonde, a comedy that argues that towheads not only have more fun, but can be just as smart as anyone else if they feel like it. This style-conscious romp, with one or two ideas in its well-manicured head. Heads aren't manicured, Todd. Anyway,
that's a weird way to describe it, yeah.
It is. Gets a major boost from Reese Witherspoon's dazzling star turn as an LA Barbie who, for the wrong reasons, sets out to conquer Harvard Law School. But the mildly engaging silliness of its premise is never transformed into something more substantial, and the attempt at a fine-tuned, clueless-like tone is only sputteringly achieved. Still,
what? Blasphemy!
The imagination-catching premise and inevitable raves for the leading lady should put this somewhere in the middle of the summer box office performers. I just want to say, I want to highlight that. He thinks that this is going to be a mid-performing movie at the box office. Let's all keep that in mind for as we move forward.
He thinks there's no substance. Did he even watch the movie?
Yeah. So Todd continues, beaming star wattage out of every port. Todd, Elle doesn't have ports. Anyway, not to mention her hair.
Certainly not ones that are visible.
Yeah. Witherspoon once again proves herself a comedian, and he does say comedian, not comedian.
Okay, that's it. I don't like him.
Worthy of comparison to such golden era greats as Carole Lombard and Ginger Rogers. Seemingly at the center of every frame of the picture, the actress possesses an effervescence that floods everyone and everything in its proximity, and here dignifies and elevates material that proves more appealing conceptually than it generally manages to be in the playing. Like her character, who will let nothing, least of all her own limitations, stand in her way, Witherspoon isn't about to let spotty dialogue and some directorial clumsiness prevent her from showing what she's made of.
Okay, rude. That's all I have. Rude.
That's fair. My comment was, rewatching this movie, I was like, I cannot believe how many lines of it I have spent my entire life quoting in pretty much every situation. So I don't know what he means by spotty dialogue, but, maybe Todd needs to exercise more, because then he'll get endorphins, and endorphins make you happy.
And endorphins make you happy.
And happy critics don't write bad reviews. They just don't. Anyway, Todd continues, since the discovery and trial process is obviously designed to provide the platform for... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping, all the summary because,
we did that already.
So I'm just skipping to, the end of his review. But he finishes up with, since the discovery and trial process is obviously designed to provide the platform for Elle to transform herself from bimbo to prospective professional, the picture necessarily becomes more sober-sided in the final act. But the means by which Elle triumphs remain entirely tied to her SoCal preoccupation with looks and fashion, and are therefore far too coincidental and flimsy to prove anything about her real abilities. A little postscript pushes things even further into fairy tale absurdity, although it must be acknowledged that everything that Elle does and accomplishes remains entirely in character. This girl will not be denied. Belle, would you like to comment?
I'm just saying, a lawyer actually worth his salt or her salt would have picked apart Chutney's statement to the extent that Elle Woods did. It just so happened that she already had the basis of knowledge about how perms work, and she did not need to do the extra research. But if Callahan was a better lawyer, he would have done this work. He would have realized, that's just, oh my god. A good lawyer would have come to the same conclusion that she did. She just did it that much faster because of her basis of knowledge.
So true. I also think from a storytelling standpoint, it's just such a brilliant tying together of everything. That was something I found myself taking And I think that I found myself taking notes on this in the movie, but I was like, there is so many seeds planted in the beginning, and they come back to all of them in the final act. Like, they really, really maximize the cleverness of how this plot is woven together. And I think that that's just a really great example of storytelling and is really well done. And, you know, using fairy tale absurdity as a critique, it's like, well, the movie is at least partially rom-com and it is intentionally absurd. So, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit too, but, you know, his further criticism in the next paragraph is that Luke Heddick, an Aussie who has made shorts that have attracted prizes and notice on the fest circuit, emphasizes the obvious more often than not, which similarly has the effect of dumbing down the humor from what it might have been. And I think this is really reminiscent of the same sort of criticism we saw 2 years earlier in But I'm a Cheerleader, in that it was a lot of like just refusing to embrace the intentional absurdity and like drama and the campiness and the kitsch of the movie that makes it so fun to watch. And I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, but I watched it again this weekend and it still had me laughing at every moment. And the best part was is I was home with my dad over the weekend. The best part was watching him crack up and turn red in the face at like every other line in this movie.
Had he ever seen it before?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he had to watch it with me 5 million times growing up.
and he still could get behind it. That's great.
Yeah. I also... trigger warning. The analogy in this next paragraph is atrocious.
Oh,
Are you ready? So he writes, however, Luke Heddick knew he had a thoroughbred he could count on to bring his film successfully to the finish line, and he's giving her free rein. There's something so... gross about comparing an actor to a horse.
Unless you're talking about BoJack Horseman, I don't want to hear
it. Or Mr. Ed. It continues, Witherspoon in turn has taken full advantage of it. She's wonderful and winning as a young lady who has one life all figured out for herself, then is fully capable of meeting the challenge of succeeding in a new one. At this point, Witherspoon is one of a very small number of screen actors one wants to see in anything she does. Heartily agree.
Can we just also, something I learned recently about Reese Witherspoon in this movie, she did really take full advantage of this. She had it written into her contract that she got to keep all of the costumes.
Yes!
I know, right? And she has some little short videos where she tries them on, like, you know, decades later, and she still looks flawless, but she has them all. She has the entire, I think for both movies, Legally Blonde wardrobe.
Like, robe blazer that she wears on the first day of school. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Oh
my god, yes.
Yeah.
It looks like a smoking jacket, and she wears a little tie, and her glasses, and her little flippy ponytail.
Yes! And her fluffy pen in the heart-shaped notebook. Okay, anyway. So this review finishes with Davis as the status-conscious Warner and Luke Wilson as an older law student who is one of Elle's few allies. Both look good, but do little else. Yeah, because it's about the ladies.
Yeah.
But Blair, who appeared with Witherspoon in Cruel Intentions, blossoms nicely from rich bitch to Elle's admiring friend, and Garber and Holland Taylor have some strong moments as law school profs. I agree. Then he complains, deficient in actual Harvard atmosphere. Did we need actual Harvard atmosphere?
What are you talking about? They play football.
Yeah. They wear Harvard regalia outfits, whatever.
She's suntanning on the sidelines at the time, but...
How much Harvard do you really... It's all a bunch of old brick buildings. Like, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here you go, Belle. The picture otherwise boasts decent production values, particularly in the area of Elle's all-important wardrobe, which has been tended to with loving attention by costume designer Sophie Durakoff-Carbonell.
That costume design was flawless.
I also was thinking so much rewatching this, how brilliantly the contrast between CULA and Harvard is, or even between Harvard and the refuge of the nail salon, which is in those very like melodrama pastels. And
I think it's supposed to be like Under the Sea themed, the nail salon. So it's very like turquoisey and purpley.
The bend and snap works every time. My dad and I were also marveling about how in the middle of this movie, they managed to basically get a musical number in with the bend and snap scene. Yeah.
One of the best songs from the actual musical.
All right. Well, anyway, we're at July 8th, the Santa Cruz Sentinel, and Samantha Critchell of the Associated Press is going to tell us about Lighten Up, Blondes Rule during the summer. So this is another more like advanced promotion article. So we're still talking around the movie. So that Variety article was kind of the first. So like a magazine like Variety had access to the movie before it came out.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
these other papers are still kind of talking around it. So Critchell writes, "The summer is about all things golden. Golden sun, golden tan, golden hair. Natural blondes go lighter, and everyone else strives for their dyed locks to look naturally sun-kissed. Quote, blonde has to be the most popular hair color in the summer, end quote, says Clancy Calloway, head of hair technology for Vidal Sassoon North America. The effect is not only physical, being blonde also has a psychological effect, Calloway observes. Lighter hair seems to inspire confidence, she says, although a redhead or brunette needs some confidence to head into the colorist chair in the first place. Quote, going blonde is a change, but it's always a change in a nice way, end quote. But, Calloway warns, be prepared to go under the microscope. Blondes always seem to attract attention, whether they want it or not. Quote, when I went blonde, I had a different experience with people who didn't know me and people who know me. No matter what, I got a different reaction, end quote, says the natural redhead who went salmon blonde for a few years. The reactions, I guess it's the savory strawberry blonde. Anyway, Critchell continues, the reactions weren't all good and weren't all bad. They were just not what she was used to, she explains. Apparently, the blonde reaction might depend on geography. In the new movie, Legally Blonde, Reese Witherspoon's naturally blonde character, Elle Woods, goes from being the blonde belle of the ball in Los Angeles to Boston's blonde leper. Of course, the moral of the story is not to judge a smart, sassy woman by her hair color, but is that really the moral of the story, or is that kind of just like the premise of the joke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, continuing. But according to Calloway, smart, sassy women's hair color is affected by the surroundings. Calloway, who is based in Atlanta but travels around the country for Vidal Sassoon, says women in the Northeast are cool blondes, meaning the blue undertone shades range from ash to Nordic. Choosing a color in New York might be the most difficult because skin tones vary so much.
Okay.
So you're saying New York has racial diversity?
Yeah. Not in California, though.
Yeah, no. Or in Atlanta.
Mm-mm.
Then she
Only
said,
white people.
Yep. Then she says, while Bostonians mostly get classic highlights. In Atlanta and the rest of the Southeast, blondes favor warm shades with pink and beige tones that are enhanced by the region's natural sun and heat. It's a very shiny and healthy look, says Calloway. Obviously, she has a favorite. Chicago and the Midwest have the most natural blondes, thanks to the Norwegian roots planted there. So, no non-white people.
Yeah.
The top color is a warm, buttery shade. Los Angeles loves their blondes, any and all of them, Calloway reports. There are platinum blondes, strawberry blondes, honey blondes, and buttery blondes. It's almost a contagious trend there, where dark-haired women from other cities go blonde as soon as their pedicured feet hit the ground. But if their feet aren't pedicured, they don't go blonde.
They don't go blonde. No. I apologize. You're going to have to cut out a bunch of random chunks of thunder.
Oh, okay.
Because even if you can't hear it, it is making some pretty big waves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I just saw the lightning and I was like, that's going to be a big clap of thunder. And then I was like, I wonder if it'll pick it up. And I just watched the waves go.
Oh. Okay, continuing, Critchell writes, Southern California men also jump on the blonde bandwagon, Calloway says, but they prefer an icy shade that looks good with a tan. Read Frosted Tips.
No, does it?
It doesn't say Frosted Tips, but that's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing like Spike in Buffy.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't really tan, but
no, but he was
like,
dead, so you know.
Yeah, no. Icy and tan, that looks like you got your hair bleached and then went to a tanning bed.
Only someone
None
in
of that looks
2001
natural.
would say that's a good look.
Oh god, the frosted tips. You're gonna look like Protozoa from Xenon.
Anyway, Critchell continues with all the awful stereotypes. Nationwide, this season's top blonde trend is chunky highlights, according to Jennifer Fermaniak, entertainment editor at Cosmopolitan magazine, which is called The Blonde Bible by Witherspoon in the film. Is it called The Blonde Bible, or is it
No,
called
it's just called The Bible.
Yeah.
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 She's like, I got things for you, like a loofah and...
Bible. Anyway, Critchell continues, the highlights mix honey, platinum, and golden shades, but they don't necessarily aim to look natural. The 46 million women who use color aren't trying to hide the fact that they either enhance or dye their hair, Fermaniak says. Quote, we've seen pop culture hairstyles come back to blonde, end quote, she observes, noting celebrities like Jennifer Aniston, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Cameron Diaz, who all flirted with darker tresses, went back to light lock. I think all those people that were naturally pretty light-haired people, so like to go darker probably would have been more work for them.
I don't think I've ever seen Gwyneth Paltrow with dark hair.
In parentheses it says New York Mets star Mike Piazza is the newest blonde bombshell, which, okay, Mike Piazza, I looked this up, was the catcher for the New York Mets, and now I'm like, is this what the Belle and Sebastian song Piazza New York Catcher is about?
I have no idea. I am unfamiliar with that song.
Anyway, the article finishes out with the, quote, bimbets, end quote, of the 1970s gave blondes a bad name, but the new blonde is seen as smart and not too sexy, but just sexy enough, Fermaniak says. Quote, we wouldn't color our hair if we were worried that people would think we are stupid, end quote, adds Calloway.
What?
Insightful. This is really journalism at its peak. Anyway, it continues. Natural blondes typically choose to stay fair-haired for most of their lives, while darker-haired women go back and forth, she says. College-age women and older women with graying hair are particularly fond of lightening their hair. It makes sense to go lighter as you get older, Calloway explains, because just as hair loses its pigment and gets grayer with age, your complexion gets lighter as well. Quote, your natural dark color may no longer look right, end quote, she advises, but not everyone is meant to be blonde, natural or otherwise, end quote. This next part is a quote. Blonde isn't always the best choice, but that doesn't stop people, end quote. Calloway says
Ouch.
to pick a hair color that best complements your skin tone. And also, I just want to point out to you that the caption for the Legally Blonde film still that went with this article says Reese Witherspoon is a smart, sassy, just sexy enough, and blonde in the movie Legally Blonde.
What does that even mean?
I don't know, but I feel like
I think they're saying her boobs were not too big.
they were not too big. They were just right.
Just sexy enough. That, I know, like, we were talking about some of the other ones, like, they probably didn't have a screener, we're just literally working with what they got, but I feel like Bert and his whole history of, like, blonde in Hollywood, as kind of slow as that was still far more interesting than this walk through the dye jobs of the various American regions to come to the conclusion that was, blonde maybe doesn't look right for you, but that's up to you. A real weird take.
Yeah, there's another July 3rd Daily Herald article about a promotional event for free blonde transformations provided by Vidal Sassoon Salons in partnership with MGM and as a celebration of National Blonde Day. So I think this is all just an advertisement for MGM and Vidal Sassoon.
Vidal Sassoon. I wonder what that blonde transformation day looked like.
Well, I think it was blonde looking.
What? God. Get the fuck out of here.
We are now up to release date, July 13th.
Okay. Here we go.
Are you ready?
What do the people think?
We're going to start with Mr. A.O. Scott of the New York Times, July 13th, writing from New York, New York. And just for a little context, I'm not really a big fan of A.O. Scott. I realize that's a controversial opinion. I'm pretty sure he's still working for the New York Times.
I may or may not have read things by him. I have no idea. Like, he's.
I don't normally go to the New York Times for, like, my film criticism, but my experience with A.O. Scott so far is that he spends a lot more time working on clever snark than real criticism.
Oh, God. Okay. All right. Let's
So
hear
he
it.
titled this article, "A Rich Ditz Has Both Brains and the Last Laugh."
I don't think you can call her a ditz if you say she has brains.
Yeah. I know, that's the thing that I think kind of annoys me is that, like, a lot of these articles really play into the stereotype of you either have to be into manicures and therefore stupid, or you have to not be into manicures and then maybe you're smart. And it's like, these things are not mutually
As the movie tells us, or shows us.
and I would think that we wouldn't need that explained. And yet here we are. All right, so Scott writes, "Legally Blonde, a fluffy new fish out of water, believe in yourself romantic comedy includes one line that made me and some of my dyspeptic colleagues laugh giddily and helplessly. It's a throwaway bit of repartee, which I wouldn't give away even if the mildly vulgar punchline were suitable here. But then again, I might, since the movie doesn't offer enough occasions for real spontaneous laughter to justify the cost of a full-price ticket." Now do you understand why I don't like this writer? This is very typical of his writing.
I want to cry.
I know, he's so mean. This is like when Rory Gilmore writes about the hippo ballerina.
Oh my God, the hippo ballerina. That movie's so fucking funny. Also, now I desperately want to know what line he's talking about.
I know, I really do too.
I'm like hurt, like personally. I am personally victimized by A.O. Scott.
This is why I don't like A.O. Scott's writing, is that he spends all of his time figuring out how to say the meanest thing possible. And like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it sells papers because it's kind of entertaining, but are we sitting here actually having an in-depth conversation about the movie as a result of this? No.
Ugh. All right, what else does he say? I do appreciate that you managed to find a villain in every one of these episodes.
Well, we're talking about film critics. There's always a villain. As Ratatouille taught us, with critics of any variety.
The work of a critic is a simple one. I love that guy.
Somebody needs to make A.O. Scott some Ratatouille and bring him back to his childhood.
To his childhood.
The early joy of watching movies, which is what Legally Blonde brings me back to.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. And another thing.
And another thing.
You can watch all of the really masterful artistic movies you want, but at the end of the day, there's something about rekindling that early sense of movie magic. And I think Chef Mark is coming back into the story again. I think he put this really well because a couple weeks ago, I was at a bar in the East Village that I found out is actually the same bar my dad used to usually go to with his bandmates.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and still there, and I don't think it's changed since 1976. And while I was there was sports playing on one of the televisions and Back to the Future playing on the other television. And so I caught the end of Back to the Future, and I was talking to my dad the next day, and I was like, oh, I wound up at our favorite bar, and they were playing Back to the Future, and it's like, I haven't seen that movie in so long, and I forgot how great it is. Like, it's so funny, and it's so sweet, and I caught the last scene where there is a VW microbus of terrorists chasing a DeLorean. Like, how wonderfully absurd is that?
Yeah.
And my dad put it really well. He was like, that movie is truly charming. And he was like, it's really hard to make a charming movie. And I think that charming is sometimes a very important part of movie magic. As much as I myself have maybe made fun of movie magic, it is the thing that made most of us who make our business movies why we did.
Yeah, because it's a delightfully absurd moment, but then when it's done, Marty rushes over to Doc, and he sits up and he's fine.
He's fine
because
he saved him. Because he read
the
letter that
letter.
Marty didn't think he was going to read.
And you just have this moment of oh no, I know what's going to happen, and then it happens, and then it turns out it wasn't, and how exciting and wonderful that Doc gets to live another day and make another time machine. And it's just a good feeling, as ridiculous as it is.
Okay, so we're going to have a Back to the Future episode at some point.
We might. Maybe we'll do a season about time travel movies. We could do Back to the Future and Hot Tub Time Machine. Okay. So yeah, movie magic, charming, things that Things that A.O. Scott doesn't get.
Oh, no, Scott.
Oh!
He writes, the script, written by Karen McCullough Lutz and Kirsten Smith, and based on a book by Amanda Brown, is the usual mid-level commercial comedy mishmash, a clear, easily digested, and wildly implausible concept accessorized with hit-or-miss bits of physical and verbal humor, a fizz of light love, trouble, and a barrage of huggy, uplifting moments at the end. For every moment, like the unquoted line, there is a piece of business like the Bend and Snap musical number in which the clients of a nail shop jiggle and shake, supposedly demonstrating a surefire way to snag a man's attention. Yeah, I also have to say, like, yes, this is obviously a very commercial movie.
Yeah.
But it's well done. There are well done commercial movies, newsflash. And, you know, sometimes this is exactly the movie that you need. Everything cannot be The Godfather. We live in a really horrifying world.
Every once in a while when we talk about like serious movies versus like, you know, fluffy commercial ones like this, I think of You Told Me, and we might have talked about it on an episode before. I don't remember if it made it into a final edits, where somebody thought you would like the movie Inception.
Oh, that's from the TED Talk.
Oh, that's from the TED Talk, right? Okay, so a little sneak peek for Laura's TED Talk if you haven't watched it. Somebody thought you would like the movie Inception for purely the reason that it was confusing, or it was hard to understand, and they were like, that must mean it's a good movie, and that must mean it's a serious movie that Laura would like, because I don't get it. And like, here's the thing, I like Inception. It's a weird movie to watch, and I still don't get all of it. I think it's really visually cool. Really, I just like to watch it for like the walls bending and like the city like folding onto itself and all of the crazy CGI.
Yeah, see, now I feel like we need to do an Inception episode, because I hate all that stuff, so I feel like we're gonna have to, like, duke it out over Inception.
I like that stuff. I like when I'm like, you know what, I just want to watch a movie that'll make me smile. I don't pick up fucking Inception! I pick up Legally Blonde!
Yeah, and that doesn't make it a lesser movie, it's just going for a different purpose.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's still very cleverly and smartly written. It's just done so in a way that's about feeling upbeat. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because, you know, if I remember correctly, people needed to feel a little upbeat in 2001. So Scott continues, if the laugh-inducing moments manage to outnumber the cringe-inducing ones, it's mainly because the director Robert Luketic hands this overstuffed Louis Vuitton suitcase of a movie to Reese Witherspoon, a sharp, quick-witted Doris Day for a drab age of screen comedy. I would like to say there are no cringy moments in this movie, and I challenge you to name one, because you don't, Mr. Scott. You don't. So, and second of all, you could say that as this overstuffed Louis Vuitton suitcase of a movie, or you could say that as this overstuffed Louis Vuitton suitcase of a movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that's actually, like, not an inaccurate metaphor, but, like, in a good way. Although I think Elle Woods would never overstuff her Louis Vuitton suitcases. I think she would treat them very nicely.
So I'm just going to skip ahead to kind of the last, like, most interesting paragraph in this article. So we're going to finish off with, quote, really, Elle, not to mention Ms. Witherspoon, is smarter than the movie, which doesn't quite know what to do with her, mocking her ditzy rich girl cluelessness at one moment and admiring her moxie the next. That is literally the premise, that she seems like a stereotype, but is actually a complex human being. That is literally the premise of the movie.
It's almost like you can't judge a book by its cover.
What?
Which is the premise of, like, so many movies that exist in the world.
Or, like, dumb blonde is just a stereotype. Yeah. Anyway. Though I will say, kudos to Reese Witherspoon, because I do think she really is, like, the perfect person. Like, I don't know if this movie would have been as good. Like, I do think it's a very cleverly written movie, but she brings so much presence to the screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the final lines from A.O. Scott before I will spare us from any more of this. The character as written is incoherent, but Ms. Witherspoon has the... Yeah, I know. Would you like to comment?
Okay.
No. But Ms. Witherspoon has the reflexes to make Elle both appealing and ridiculous. It's funny in that slightly queasy, un-PC Doris Day kind of way to watch her suffer tearful humiliations, and also funny to watch her recover her dignity and tell off the snobs and hypocrites who have underestimated or maligned her. How is this movie really that un-PC?
Yeah, no, I don't. That's what's making me question the line he thought was so hilarious.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so this article also came out July 13th. So I had to piece together halves of this article from different newspapers, but
oh no.
It was by David Germain, and I found half of it in the Salina Journal on July 13th from Salina, Kansas, and the other half of it in the Index Journal from Greenwood, South Carolina on July 15th. It appeared under two different headlines. One of them was Witherspoon makes her move towards stardom, and the other one is Witherspoon goes blonde in search for wider appeal. So it's actually, I think this is interesting too, comparing this to Buy Me a Cheerleader, because Natasha Lyonne at that time talks about not really being interested in commercial success and wanting to do really smart, interesting movies. Reese Witherspoon is explicitly invested in establishing a commercial career for herself and going from these smaller indie movies to, big box office hits, which, good for her.
Which she does. Very much.
Which she does. She succeeds at, and I'm grateful for it because I like a lot of the movies that she's made. They make me feel better when I'm not feeling well.
Exactly. Legally Blonde and Sweet Home Alabama are two movies I will always reach for.
I love Sweet Home Alabama so much.
It's so good. It's good.
Really good. Anyway, I don't understand a lot of the southern parts of it, but
it's even better when you do. It's hilarious.
Anyway, this article reads, Reese Witherspoon has endless praise for roles as a ruthless overachiever in Election, a vamp turned bookworm in Pleasantville, and as a semi-psychotic Red Riding Hood in the cult hit Freeway. Now, Witherspoon wants an audience. She describes her latest, Legally Blonde, as a step toward establishing herself as a commercially viable lead actress. Though the 25-year-old Witherspoon has acted in movies since age 14, the financial reality of filmmaking is relatively new territory for her. Quote, I think at the time I made Election, I didn't even know what commercial prospects were, end quote, Witherspoon said in an interview over coffee on a terrace overlooking Sunset Boulevard. Quote, I just read the script and thought, oh, that's fun, end quote. I actually love the detail that this interview happens on Sunset Boulevard because this is about a very young actress looking to really solidify her commercial career. And the movie Sunset Boulevard is, I think she's an actress in that. She's an aging actress who...
Yeah, Gloria Swanson, right? Yeah.
Yes, whose career is ending and she can't take it. She has to believe that it's still going for her.
That is nice, yeah.
So I like that detail. Anyway, so the quote continues, it wasn't something that I was aware of until probably about 2 years ago that somehow it mattered if your movies made money. So I tried to put myself into a different mind frame when I decided to do this film. I wanted to reach more people. She may not have a hit on her resume, but standout performances in smaller films have earned Witherspoon a reputation as an actress whose spunk and charm can make audiences love characters who are essentially dislikable, even scary. Tracy Flick in Election malevolently campaigns for student government and becomes the nemesis of a befuddled teacher, Matthew Broderick, yet still evokes empathy for her little girl instability. Vanessa Lutz in Freeway is a sewer-mouth, illiterate anti-hero who manages to endear herself to viewers as she dispenses a merciless comeuppance to her own big bad wolf, played by Kiefer Sutherland. With Elle Woods of Legally Blonde, Witherspoon knew she had another character audiences might have trouble connecting with. So, skipping some summary. When we got the script, I said, okay, here's the situation. This character is essentially unlikable, Witherspoon said. She has lots of money, she's got all these designer clothes, she has all these friends, she's popular. Why are we going to love this girl? Witherspoon's solution. Play the character as someone so smart, capable, and upbeat that she's impossible to dislike. A woman whose guiding principle is look good, feel good, and project that onto others. In the summer overload of action blockbusters, Blockbusters, Legally Blonde has solid buzz as a sleeper hit that could propel Witherspoon to box office stardom. So a note that early article before the movie came out predicted that this would be mid-level success at the box office. I also think it's interesting, and I noticed this too, because I told you, wait till you hear some of the other movies that were, blockbusters that summer. But it is, a lot of these very actiony, traditionally masculine movies.
Oh, yeah. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air to have Legally Blonde.
I mean, to me, it would have been.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the other movies?
Well, there was AI. There is,
Yeah, you talked about that one. AI.
I don't remember all of them. I think I have a list later on that I will share with you.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's lots of action blockbusters, and I like that. I think that's another thing about this movie, is that it's important that it was a commercial success for, not that, men couldn't also enjoy it, and I'm sure they did, but for a very feminine-oriented movie.
It seems like Barbenheimer before Barbenheimer was a thing.
Yes, this was the OG Barbenheimer.
The OG Barbenheimer.
Yeah. Okay, so, quote, "It's certainly Reese's turn," end quote, said Legally Blonde director Robert Luketic. "I can just sort of tell it's changing for her. This is one that's going to be a significant step in her career, one that shows her versatility and that she is the real thing. America is going to love her. She's our next Julia Roberts." The daughter of a doctor and a nursing professor. I know, I like that too.
Yeah.
I think America's Sweethearts actually came out around this time. It might have been this summer.
Oh my god, hilarious. Speaking of Julia Roberts, also a good movie.
The daughter of a doctor and a nursing professor, Witherspoon began acting lessons at age 7 in Tennessee and broke into films with an acclaimed performance in the 1991 teen melodrama The Man in the Moon. 2 years later, Witherspoon starred in A Far Off Place. Her other credits include Jack the Bear, Fear, Twilight, not to be confused with the later Twilight, and Best Laid Plans. Last year, she appeared in American Psycho. I forget that she's in American Psycho.
Oh
she's
my god,
so
she's
good in
so
that.
good in American Psycho too. She's barely on there, but she steals.
She has presence.
She does, and it's so great.
And the last one in this list, Little Nicky, the first film Witherspoon shot since taking time off after the birth of her baby daughter with husband Ryan Philippe in 1999. It was Witherspoon's In Everybody's Face role in Freeway in 1996 that really caught Hollywood's attention. And though she already had half a dozen movies behind her at that point, it wasn't until Freeway that Witherspoon truly felt she had found her calling. Before that, Witherspoon seriously considered following her parents into medicine and studying to be a surgeon. Witherspoon is...
Which I'm sure she would have been great at.
Yes. Because I think Witherspoon, like Elle, could be great at anything that she sets her mind to.
She sets her mind to.
So the article continues, Witherspoon is looking for another project for her and her husband, with whom she co-starred in Cruel Intentions, a teen variation of Dangerous Liaisons. Quote, "Certainly now that we have a child, it would make our lives a lot easier to be on the same set at the same time," end quote, Witherspoon said. Quote, "We could just bring the baby and keep her there," end quote. Sure. The family was able to stick together in London this year when Philippe was there shooting Robert Altman's Gosford Park, and Witherspoon went into production on Oliver Parker's The Importance of Being Earnest immediately after. While Witherspoon viewed Ernest as a good move to get beyond teen and college roles, she wound up playing an 18-year-old, the love interest of Rupert Everett, in Oscar Wilde's comedy of Mistaken Identities. "I didn't know that until I got there," Witherspoon said. "I'm playing 18, and how old is Rupert?" And the writer put in parentheses, 42.
Oh!
And then the final quote of this article goes to Witherspoon. It says, "But you know, if someone will still hire me as 18, God bless them."
She ain't wrong.
Yeah. Alright, so also coming out on the day this movie was released, She's Legally Blonde in the Daily Herald from Chicago, Illinois. It says, "At the movies, perhaps after dinner and a brew, Dan Geyer says Legally Blonde starring Reese Witherspoon is adorable and irresistible. Dan puts Witherspoon up there with two other famous blonde comedians, Judy Holliday and Carole Lombard." And so his article continues, "The comedy Legally Blonde has two irresistible things going for it: adorable star Reese Witherspoon and an adorable story about a kind soul struggling to make good in an unfair world." Yes!
Sorry, this is accurate.
Yes. How do you feel about adorable, though?
I mean, I do think it is accurate in the beginning. I think that's fair. She starts off the movie really inhabiting that, and I think that's gotten her very far in her world in LA. Like what makes her, like, I don't know if it makes her succeed academically necessarily, but like it's what probably got her Warner in the beginning, was that she was adorable. It's probably what made her voted president of her sororities, not because of her like business sense and academics. She would probably make a good president, which is what happened, but like they just thought she was so nice and kind and adorable. Like, I think in her previous world, being adorable got her very far, and then she realizes she has to rely on the other things that are good, equally good about her when she makes it to Harvard instead. So I think in the beginning, it's not an inaccurate word. I think it's probably not fair to describe Reese Witherspoon as adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, prepare yourself. I'm going to continue. This is a classic tale of a person with a good heart who withstands betrayal, hardships, disappointment, and the temptation to sell out and rallies to make a positive impact on her world. Unfortunately, Legally Blonde has a disappointing finish, a far-fetched courtroom scene in which coincidence and too easy confessions mar an otherwise brightly directed, polished production. Elle also delivers a commencement speech that lays out the movie's cliched message of having faith in yourself. Do we really need to have this underscored, uppercased, and italicized?
Yes. Her commencement
Make
speech,
your defense.
it's you. Most importantly, you must always have faith in yourself. That's like a thing that has like carried me through some fucking shitty times, Like because that's the whole point, is nobody believed in her, and everybody made assumptions about everybody in the movie regardless of who they actually were. Like, and these, oh my god, I'm angry beyond words.
Yeah, I think I like that you pointed out that, like, thinking about that has gotten you through tough times, because actually thinking about this as a movie that I watched as a little girl, I think that the messaging of this movie is really important, and I bet that there were a lot of little girls, like, even though it's not a children's movie, I think a lot of little girls were probably watching this, and I think that it actually is really inspiring for them. And I like that it also, one of my favorite things, and we're going to talk about this more, but I love that when she returns triumphantly and with determination to the courtroom after she's about to give up, she's not wearing the black suit anymore. She's wearing the pink dress. And I like that it's kind of like, because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely just wanted to wear pink dresses at that age.
Yes.
And I think it's really nice for a little girl who wants to wear pink dresses to see this smart, powerful woman in a pink dress go save the day in the courtroom.
I remember, so when I was about this age, I was convinced that when I grew up, I was either going to be a lawyer or an orthodontist. It is unsurprising that I turned out to be neither, but I was so set on that.
Oh, you little Pisces.
And I'm sure when I told adults that, they thought I was so weird. Because I was this little, like, 8 or 9-year-old kid who was like, I want to be an orthodontist. And they were like, oh, what? How do you know what that is?
At this age, I was telling all the adults that I was going to be president and Hillary Clinton was my greatest rival. And I am so sorry, because clearly I'm the reason why the world is ruined now. I'm sorry, Hillary.
I'm sorry, Hillary. The reason I wanted to be either a lawyer or an orthodontist was because I was watching a lot of Legally Blonde, and because I had braces at the time. And I realize now, looking back, it was not that I actually wanted to be a lawyer or an orthodontist. I wanted to be the kind of adult that Elle Woods was. And I wanted to be the kind of adult that my orthodontist was. Her name was Catherine Schwab in Houma, Louisiana. I don't know if she's still in practice.
Shout out to Catherine Schwab!
Go see Dr. Schwab. She was so amazing. And she was so nice. Everybody, like, all of her, like, techs that worked there were always so happy. It was such a great place. She had, like, a Lego board in the waiting room. Like, I don't know why, but I was just like, she's so cool and she's so nice. And I don't like the dentist, but I don't mind coming here, and it's not scary, and she has such cool colors for braces, and she's always so patient, And the same thing with Elle Woods is that she's very kind, and she stands up for what she believes in, and she makes people enjoy being around her, and she helps to uplift other people around her as well as herself. And so I realize now I just wanted to be the kind of adult woman that these people were that I was seeing as a young impressionable 8-year-old. because of the stories that I saw them partaking in. So like that scene at the end is a very big part of it.
I agree. And I think also going back to her deciding to like be herself and wear the pink dress and go into that courtroom as her instead of pretending to be anybody else, it also is such a brilliant maneuver on the writer's parts, because it mirrors that beginning scene in the dress shop when her friends say, "Why would you give up your signature color?"
I don't understand why you're completely disregarding your signature color.
Yes, for the night that she thinks Warner is going to propose to her. And sure enough, when we see her walking down the staircase to meet Warner for their date that night, she's in her signature pink, and she does decide to be true to herself, which is, which then becomes like such a great setup for her deciding, I have to become who Warner wants. And I like at the end, because the other reason too is like when she runs out of the courtroom, like, in the kind of after the first half where she's like, I can't do this anymore, and like she's hit rock bottom or whatever, Luke Wilson has that great moment where he's like, what if you're becoming, oh, Belle, you gotta help me with the quotes, what if you're becoming who you're meant to be, I think? Something like that.
I don't think I know this one.
Oh, there's a nice moment where he's really sad that she's determined to leave Harvard and to give up.
I'm tired of being something I'm not. And he says, what if you're being somebody you are?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I like how when she comes back, we have that pink dress moment again, and she's like more herself than ever. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then walks out to Warner at the end, and he wants to get back together with her, and she says, if I'm going to be a partner in a law firm by the time I'm 30, I need a boyfriend who's not a complete bonehead. And then she walks away.
Good job, Elle.
So good.
Which also,
so good.
For all of those young preteens watching this movie, isn't that just a great lesson that it's like, this guy is not worth it. Go out with somebody who's worth it.
Yes. In the search for love, she found out how to love herself.
Yes, exactly. The article ends on kind of a wishy-washy note where it does praise Witherspoon, compares her to Judy Holliday and Carole Lombard, but kind of ultimately seems to feel that she succeeded in spite of the script and not because of it, which I totally disagree with. It also has like a weird line where he says, I'm even willing to overlook my automatic rule of never giving a good review to a movie employing the heinous spit take, where a character, here Vivian, spews a drink when she sees Elle arriving at a regular party dressed as a Playboy bunny. I actually think that's a really funny moment.
It took me a minute to remember. I was like, when is there a spit take? And then you said Vivian, and I went, oh yeah, that's a good bit. Because, oh my god, I like your costumes too, but when I dress up as a frigid bitch, I try not to look so constipated.
Oh, I love that moment so much.
Oh, so good.
Anyway, so the next article has to do with Southern stereotypes.
Okay.
So, Belle, are you ready to provide your commentary?
I am very curious as to how we're going to do a Southern stereotype on movie that takes place nowhere near the South.
Because Reese Witherspoon is from the South.
Right, but she's not playing a Southern character in this movie.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm ready.
All right, so this is called Barefoot and Blonde. It came from the Sentinel Entertainment Desk, Santa Cruz Sentinel, July 13th, Santa Cruz, California.
Okay.
Reese Witherspoon, who plays a walking blonde joke in Legally Blonde, and the title is spelled wrong, has never experienced hair-related discrimination, but she has had to contend with stereotypes about being from the South. Quote, people just assume you're not too smart, end quote, Witherspoon told Gene Wolfe and Melanie Seymour of the New York Times. If you have a Southern accent, people automatically think you must have 7 children and live barefoot on a farm. When I first started getting serious about acting, they told me I'd have to lose my accent, but I learned to keep it so I could use it when I needed it.
Mm-hmm. Which she does in Sweet Home Alabama.
Yes, she does. That's it. That's all I have. A weird little... That was it. That was it.
I mean, maybe in the 90s in California, people made those assumptions. I don't know. I've heard weirder stereotypes about the part of the South where I'm from. When I first moved, I grew up in South Louisiana, and I went to college in North Mississippi, and when I first moved there, people told me that the stereotype about Louisiana was that you didn't own shoes and you smelled like corn dogs.
Why corn dogs?
I don't know. I think something to do with like all the state fairs and festivals. We do have a lot of state fairs and festivals.
Okay.
To be fair, we like a celebration, so maybe that's it. I don't like wearing shoes, but I do own them.
And you're owning more of them. We've been working on that.
I own a reasonable amount for a single person who doesn't leave her apartment much.
Okay. Also, you live in a place that's basically one season. Like, I'm telling you, you would have more shoes if you lived in a 4-season location.
I have boots.
Yeah, but you have like one pair of boots.
I have 2.
So this next article seems to see Legally Blonde as the legacy of Clueless.
Somebody else made that comment earlier, and I don't entirely disagree. I think they share some moments.
I do too, but I don't think one is better than the other. I like them both equally.
They're 2 very different stories, and I don't think Cher's timeline is about her being like intelligent in spite of looking the way she does. I just, I don't know. I think they have similar vibes, mostly just because they're both about blonde women in the early 2000s.
Yeah, they are kind of a little bit of a weird comparison. Like that's kind of where the similarities stop.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And they both like clothes.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, like, Clueless is actually Emma, so it is like a true rom-com, whereas Legally Blonde I would put in the rom-com family, but it's not really about the romance. Like, as people have pointed out, Luke Wilson doesn't get a lot of screen time, and I actually think that that's not a critique of the movie. I think that that's fine, because it's more about Reese Witherspoon's personal journey.
Exactly, yeah. We don't even know that they have ended up together, except in, like, the text crawl at the bottom of the screen doing the where are they now situation, so... Like, it's not a romantic thing at all.
So, this article is called Clued In. With a nod to Alicia Silverstone, Reese Witherspoon gives Legally Blonde a smart look, by Christy Lemire from the Santa Cruz Sentinel, July 13th.
A lot from Santa Cruz.
Yeah, there was a lot from Santa Cruz. This article was written in Valley Girl speak.
Yes, you did text me earlier and say you were going to do a Valley Girl voice. I'm ready. I'm ready. At least a little bit. If I had to do my Betty Davis impression, you have to do a bit of a Valley Girl voice.
We'll do it until my throat hurts. Oh my god, you guys. I just saw the best movie the other day. It was adorable. It's called Legally Blonde, and it's about this blonde sorority girl who becomes a lawyer and saves the day. How could she not? The movie is a lot like 1995's Clueless, which was totally cute in that it has a brain and a heart. And like its heroine, the movie, is a lot smarter than it looks. Hopefully, Legally Blonde will do more for Reese Witherspoon's career than Clueless did for Alicia Silverstone's. Hello? Anyone remember Excess Baggage? Witherspoon plays the fabulously dressed and perfectly coiffed Elle Woods, president of the Delta Nu sorority, Miss June in the campus calendar, and she has a 4.0 grade point average. Okay, so her major is like fashion merchandising. The girl is an expert on varying shades of pink. We're skipping ahead. But her keen intuition, unbeatable enthusiasm, and impeccable sense of style see her through. She even helps out on a murder trial. How cool is that? Okay, so the movie does drag a bit here, but you can't have everything, you know? Witherspoon showed in 1999's Election how complete she can make a character, how she can turn somebody annoying into a sympathetic figure you want to cheer for. Elle isn't nearly as obnoxious as the overachieving Tracy Flick in Election, but she is interminably perky, which would be hard to tolerate on anyone else. Witherspoon appears in nearly every frame of the movie, and she positively sparkles. Legally Blonde is the feature film debut of director Robert Luketic, and he did such an amazing job. Screenwriters Karen McCullough Lutz, a blonde former sorority girl who took fashion merchandising classes, and Kirsten Smith give her great things to say, and they inject so many cute details. As a young lawyer working with Elle, Luke Wilson doesn't get to do much but play the straight man, which is too bad because he was so good in Bottle Rocket and in small roles in Rushmore and My Dog Skip. Jennifer Coolidge, though, is way better here as a frumpy, insecure manicurist than in recent roles in Pootie Tang and Down to Earth, maybe because she has better material to work with. Duh! You don't have to have a law degree to figure that out.
Oh my god. I love that so much. I want to go back. This may not be exactly on topic where you're heading with this, but while you take a sip of your water, I want to go back to, this is the second one where, or maybe the third one, where the character of Elle was just described as like annoying or unlikable. And I am kind of finding myself a little surprised at that, because like I can look back and see now from like my hindsight, like, yeah, she was a rich, entitled kind of whiny girl. But
I mean, I generally don't like sorority girls, and I also don't like preppy girls who wear navy blue. So
you and the Connecticut housewife blue. But like as a kid, I would never have thought to describe the character of Elle Woods as annoying. I remember really, until people are pointing it out and we're reading these now, I wouldn't have really even thought to describe her as like annoying or entitled, because I really didn't focus on the background details of her character, because I think what Reese Witherspoon does so well to make her likable, as she herself said in that interview, is she just makes her really earnest and really genuine in what she wants.
And she's really kind. Like, they point out that she's not like the popular girl because she's rich and pretty.
Because everybody in the sorority is rich and pretty.
Yeah, but she's actually really nice to everybody. Like, there's that girl who comes to her door when she's dealing with the breakup, and they're like,
I'm having trouble with this whole eyeliner thing.
Yeah, so you can tell that Elle's like the person who normally had patience and would help people. And she does that throughout the movie. Like, I love this scene where the really dorky guy is getting rejected by those women and they're being so mean to him. And then she comes up to him and slaps him and is like, you gave me the most beautiful night of my life. And then they all want to go out with him.
Yeah. And then later he returns the favor by helping her reach the books on the tall shelf that she can't get herself.
Yes, exactly. I have a really, really tiny review that like shows up in a bajillion newspapers. So this says, cute Reese Witherspoon carries this zany comedy with confidence and style as a California blonde who gets into Harvard so she can be with her boyfriend. There she must prove that blonde doesn't mean dumb and that being nice has its own rewards. A fun time that overcomes a deficient ending with Luke Wilson and Selma Blair. Everybody seems to not like the ending of this movie.
I don't get it. She graduates from law school at the top of her class. That's amazing.
I think you can call Elle Woods cute, but I agree that you can't call Reese Witherspoon cute.
No, that seems unfair. She's a 25-year-old, like, married woman with a child. Like,
yeah, who has a very long and successful career already and is making this movie because she's strategic about preserving that career. Yeah. If you remember, we had that prediction that it would be mid-tier success. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then we had the prediction that it would be part of like summer blockbusters at the box office. So now we get to this article that I found in the Iola Register from Iola, Kansas on July 16th. And it says, Blonde, no dummy at box office. Moviegoers prefer blondes. Reese Witherspoon's law school comedy Legally Blonde debuted as the weekend's top film, taking in $20.4 million, according to studio estimates Sunday. Hollywood remains on track to break its summer revenue record set in 1999. And this article ends with, "We're in a little lull right now," said Paul Dergarabedian, president of Exhibitor Relations, which tracks the box office. Quote, "I think we're going to have a final stretch of summer that will be extremely strong," end quote. And I pulled up the article that's got, this like list of what's top kind of changes at the box office. Obviously, it's the summer. Oh my god, what did I do? Okay, never mind, we're good. All right, so top grossing films. Number 1, Legally Blonde at $20.4 million. Number 2, The Score. Number 3, Cats and Dogs. Number 4, Final Fantasy. Number 5, Scary Movie 2. Number 6, The Fast and the Furious. They've been making those movies for so long.
Oh, yeah. That's the first one, right? It just says The Fast and the Furious. Yep.
Yeah. Number 7, Dr. Dolittle 2. Number 8, Kiss of the Dragon. Number 9, AI, Artificial Intelligence. And number 10, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. So great year for badass women.
I loved that movie. I loved that movie so much.
So we've heard a lot of the blonde point of view. Are you ready to hear about the brunettes?
Let's hear the Jackies.
Yeah. All right, Selma Blair, She's Not Threatened. And I found this in the Index Journal on July 18th, Greenwood, South Carolina. And I feel like the whole point of this article is just playing on the whole trope of let's just pit women against each other, which is really what the whole blonde versus brunette thing is at the end of the day, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So this little article says, Selma Blair is a brunette, but she doesn't feel threatened by the big-haired blonde beauty queens in Hollywood. Quote, I'm pretty open and real, and I'm not sure that's necessarily a good thing, end quote, said Blair, who co-stars with Reese Witherspoon in the comedy Legally Blonde. Quote, I think a lot of people would rather have a girl that really presents herself in a really positive way all the time, so I deal with them just fine. It's how people deal with me that's usually the problem, end quote. The 29-year-old actress said she's never been known for having over-the-top looks, and that's fine with her. Quote, some women who have other things that are more distracting, you know, like a beautiful body, very voluptuous, big hair, they might get more of a rap as being unintelligent because it's such a distracting glamour, end quote, she said. And I don't really possess that, although I'm perfectly happy with the way I looked. Legally Blonde debuted at number 1 at the box office last weekend, grossing more than $20 million. That's it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Selma, I think you're really beautiful.
I think she is beautiful. I do think she looks really good as that kind of like cool ashy blonde she's got going on right now. It's gorgeous.
But anyway, I just think I do kind of love that they're like trying to pit the brunettes and the blondes against each other, and she's like, I really don't care.
Yeah, she's like, people like what they're gonna like, and I think I'm nice. She's like, not biting, but you guys keep on. I can appreciate that.
I have one last, like, big article for us. This is called Legally Rescues Women from Certain Singlehood by Mandy Major, Sentinel correspondent for the Santa Cruz Sentinel, July 20th. I will say, there's a lot of problems with this article, but Mandy...
the title alone has got me
I think we're going to have to
concerned.
put on our writing professor. So Belle and I both taught English 101, and Belle is currently
an academic editor, writing tutor, writing coach. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready.
I think we're going to have to put on our professorial caps for this one, because Mandy Major is a creative writing major at UC Santa Cruz, and believe it or not, is happily in a relationship with her boyfriend.
Okay. Why wouldn't I believe?
I think we're gonna have to grade the student paper with this one.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So Mandy says, Hollywood loves women who get dumped. This is probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mandy continues. They provide the classic formula of tears, man-hating, and the miraculous transformation from depressed dumpy to available babe. I would say that is a good A+ description of the Hollywood formula for many films. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. She continues. Finally, the perfect new man appears, rescuing our damsel from, gasp, unacceptable singlehood. Okay. Still with her.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Legally Blonde, the summer's chick flick, has this concept down pat. Superficially, I adored the movie. Oh, why are we humming?
I don't think Legally Blonde fits that formula.
I don't think it does either, because I really don't think it's a rom.
We have breakup tears and man-hating, because I do love the part where she's watching the soap opera, and he's like, I'll always love you, and she goes, liar, and chucks her box of chocolates at the TV. I do love that part. So, like, we've got the first part, but then, like...
Wait, you also skipped the best part of that scene, though, is that she's taking one bite out of every chocolate, and then she's about to throw it back
in the box.
Yeah, and then she gets to one that she's about to throw back in the box, and then she goes, and eats the whole thing.
That is such a timeless vibe.
Yes, it is.
And she does that beautifully, and I don't know if that was her decision as an actress or the director's decision, but whoever decided that, genius, give him a raise. So, like, we've got the, the breakup, the tears, the man-hating for sure, but then, like, the new man swoops in and makes everything better. I mean, she does... That doesn't happen. She does get, like, a few words of encouragement from Luke Wilson's character, but he's very, like, to the side of things. He is not the thing or the reason that pushes her forward. That is herself.
No, this is really about finding independence and empowerment through a career that allows you to be independent. And there happens to be a man who happens to be very supportive of that.
Right, because I think he gives her, I don't know if it's the benefit of the doubt is the right way to put it, but, like, I think if she hadn't met him on the bench after she got kicked out of that one class, obviously the rest of the movie I don't think wouldn't have happened. But rather than chalking it up as like, oh, I guess she'll be gone by the end of the week, he's like, you know what, here's some tips that helped me when I was a new student and really struggling, and I think you can pull it together if you had the same information that I did.
Also clever plays with gender roles in this movie too, and in that moment I love that he admits that one of the professors made him cry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Holland Taylor made him cry once. Yeah. She'll kick you right in the balls or wherever. That's a good moment. But no, I don't think that fits the breakup trope at all. And I think the timeline of events she describes in, like, the Hollywood breakup movie is very accurate, but I think this movie starts off that way and then breaks out of it, as exactly you've said, by her finding her own independence instead of a new
and I actually think Luke Wilson plays the role that many women romantic interests play in a lot of movies that are more about a man's career, and there kind of happens to be, I don't know why, but the only example I'm thinking of is Diane Keaton in The Godfather.
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess so. I mean, like, if the career is organized crime. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Mandy continues. Superficially, I adored the movie. I laughed and rooted for Elle Woods, Reese Witherspoon's fun concoction of cotton candy pink suits and perky mannerisms. I was completely enamored with her character, even though in reality this chihuahua-toting sorority sister would have me gagging. I have a feeling Witherspoon was attracted to the movie by its empowering woman conquers obstacles plot, in which Elle proves herself to be smart and talented when everyone assumes she's a ditz. Okay, Mandy. You're writing this July 20th. We just read a bunch of other articles that all explain that Witherspoon was attracted to making money and making sure that she had a career as an adult actress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she was interested in empowering herself. Mm-hmm. Yet this plot isn't so fun or empowering when you rub the lipstick off and find Hollywood gently pushing a very specific agenda. It breaks down like this: attractive guy plus marriage equals woman's life fulfillment.
No one gets married in this
Nope.
movie. They discuss a proposal that will happen off screen after she's won a murder trial as a first-year law student and graduated at the top of her fucking class.
Yeah, in like a postscript.
Did you watch the movie, Mandy? I'm gonna need you to cite your evidence,
All right,
Mandy.
so Mandy says, but let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, please, because I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Elle Woods is a colorful cream puff in a basket. Despite her positive characteristics, Elle and her sorority sisters think the best thing about her is her boyfriend. Elle is so in love, she had no goals except becoming Mrs. Warner Huntington III. When Warner dumps her, Elle gets a new goal, go to Harvard Law School to win him back. But no one, which I would like to point out so far, like, yeah, these aren't great things, but this is, like, called character growth. Like, movies aren't really interesting if you don't have it.
Right, yeah. This is where she begins, but she learns that's not what she needs, and that is not where
So
she
it
ends.
continues, but no one takes Elle seriously, particularly Warner. Her next goal is also based on male opinion, to become the student her classmates doubt she can be. I actually would say that the impetus to that has to do with her rivalry with Vivian and the push she gets from Holland Taylor to women.
What I think is devastating that it was not included with the movie. There is a deleted scene. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
I, of course, have seen it because we watched this DVD until it died, right? There's a couple of deleted scenes. There's one scene at the party. So after, she shows up in the bunny costume and Warner is like, you're not going to be picked for that internship. You're not smart enough. And she's like, I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? I think in that moment, first of all, that's in the movie. That's the moment where it stops becoming about Warner and it starts becoming about her, because she's like, I don't care. I'm never going to be good enough for you, so I'm going to be good enough for myself. And then what immediately follows is the deleted scene is she's going to leave the party and she walks past all of these other students in her class. So Vivian and the other bitchy friend whose name I don't think we ever learn. Enid and the tall guy who was like, Stephen Hawking stole his brief history of time from my 4th grade paper. I love that guy. They're placing bets on how long she will last before she drops out and leaves. And they're like, actually, they have like a bowl and they're putting money in and they're all placing bets on how long or how short she's going to last. And she walks in on them doing this. And they all kind of look up at her, aware that she's walked in on them talking basically shit about her, but nobody says anything. So she rolls her eyes and goes to leave the party. And when she's leaving the party, that is what the movie immediately cuts to, is in the movie where she's leaving the party and she goes, I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods can be. And so I would argue it's not based on male attention. The moment she realizes, she's like, I'm never going to be good enough for him. I'm going to be good enough for myself. And I'm going to be good enough to show all of these fuckers that they don't know who they're dealing with. And I think it's tragic that's cut out of the movie because I think it gives so much more nuance to that.
Yeah,
moment.
and I think that it's really important, though, that confrontation with Warner happens so early in the movie because, like you said, it says this is not really what this movie was about. It's a premise to get us here. And it's a funny premise, but now the real story begins.
Mm-hmm. Now the real story begins. And then the amazing song.
Yes.
Gonna watch me shine. Such a good soundtrack.
I might have to just watch this movie again one more time.
I might have to. I didn't watch it this weekend because, again, I've seen it so
Belle!
many times. But I might have to watch it tonight after we talk.
Okay, so even when Elle meets the kindly Emmett, who sees through her lip gloss and into her deep thoughtfulness, he still acts as the requisite male directing force. I actually think Emmett is a really important character in that he is kind of one-dimensional. Like I said, I think he occupies a place a lot of female romantic interests have occupied in film where they don't get a lot of depth. It's up to the actor to bring that depth. They don't get a lot of screen time and they're kind of there just to be supportive. And I think that that's what Emmett does. He just offers a foil to Warner. He's supportive. He appreciates her intelligence and he's not that much of a directing force. I mean, he's kind of a breath of fresh air when everybody is so mean to her, but that's kind of it. And so then Mandy continues to say anytime she falters, a man is there to point her in the right direction and give her self-confidence, which again is not true. The first time she thinks that she has to leave Harvard, she meets Paulette.
Yes.
Jennifer Coolidge's character. And Paulette is the one who, we already rehashed that, but Paulette is like, if you can't be happy, none of us can, so you gotta do it for the rest of us.
At the end of the movie, it's the Holland Taylor professor character that gets her back on off her ass. And
right, because Luke Wilson has that great moment where he's like, maybe you're becoming who you really are, but she still walks away after that. It's not until it's actually, and I love it too because both of these pivotal moments with women who encourage her to go back and keep trying happen in the salon.
Yeah,
which is very much a female safe space. And again, you know what? Crying, big hair are the ways in which women get to take up space in the world. And we get to do it in salons.
Crying, big hair, long nails.
Yes. that scratch. Okay, so Mandy continues, even while working as a law intern, where Elle and her hair really shine, she is validated by men, instead of realizing her own abilities as an alternative thinker. That's like actually literally not what happens. And wait, I'm just gonna read this next line because it's kind of the same thing. As Elle moves outside the circle of male validation, you begin thinking, yes, finally she is becoming self-reliant and sassy. But wait, we're not watching an indie film, this is Hollywood. Elle's success in law school does not provide a sufficient Hollywood ending. What could be better than academic success? A relationship, of course. Elle is only independent enough to move away from her old heartbreak so she can score another better man. Hollywood just can't let this one get away. They can't allow someone so cute and accomplished to be single. It's a postscript.
Right, it's such a small detail, and she achieves so much and becomes so much of herself outside of that relationship, and then it's like, oh, and by the way, they are probably going to get married. And even in the second movie, I think which was really advertised as like wedding heavy. By the way, if you haven't seen Legally Blonde 2, like one of the plot points is that she and Emmett are getting married and they're planning their wedding. That's all kind of shunted to the side when she realizes again she has something she has to prove for herself, and she has more people dogs she has to advocate for and save, and like they end up pushing things away and postponing things, and planning gets to the wayside because she's like, this is important, I do want to marry you, but this is much more important, and we need to fix this and save this and do it's so inaccurate. I do think her comment maybe about being an intern and being in the circle of male validation is not entirely off base, because I think there is, a good moment where she and Vivian share that, or Vivian's like, Callahan never asks Warner to get his coffee. He's asked me like a dozen times. And when Elle goes to visit Brooke in jail and she gets the alibi, and then she's like, oh, I can't tell you, I'm sworn to secrecy. And everybody kind of takes a moment of being like, oh my God, this dumb sorority bitch doesn't know what she's doing, doesn't know what's important. But then she does, and she's like, well, if we're good lawyers, we don't need it. I think it's not entirely off base, but I do think she still comes out on top as an individual in her own right, outside of that circle of male validation.
But the other thing, too, is the reason why Vivian opens up to her and starts going, maybe we could actually be friends instead of rivals, is because she admires that she doesn't give away the alibi, that she sticks to her word. And she sees that as, like, a sign of, a person with values. And also kind of a sign of sisterhood.
I thought that was very classy.
And I also thought something that I really paid attention to when I was watching this, because I actually read all these reviews before I rewatched the movie too, so I found myself really paying attention to what struck me as true and what didn't strike me as true. But I was really impressed by how much of the movie is actually not about male validation at all, but is actually about sister. It takes the premise of the sorority and really emphasizes a theme of sisterhood throughout. I mean, even her friends who seem kind of ditzy in the beginning, they're there at the trial at the end to support her. I think they're at her graduation too. I like that they even set up that the sorority is not just some like really shallow ditzy place either. There's so many moments of like the girls supporting each other, or people going to Elle for advice, or I love the whole montage of her studying for the LSATs, because it's like the whole sorority is like, we don't really get why you're doing this, but if you're doing it, we're here to support you, and they all help her get through it. And I like that, Warner very quickly is like not the main rival of the story, and instead Vivian becomes this rival, and that's about leading to their friendship so that they can bond together against the man who's the real villain of the story. And you get the sisterhood between, the defendant in the murder case and Elle. And and then of course, like, Paulette and Elle are just such adorable friends.
They get her dog back.
I love that scene so much. And I'm taking the damn dog.
Dumbass.
Yes. And then I also love, too, that even in the murder trial, there's this brief moment where they're talking about how the woman who is on the stand, who ends up actually being the murderer, has gotten a perm. And Elle tells that whole story about the sorority sister who gets the perm and they're all relieved when she gets it wet and ruins it because it wasn't a good look and they told her not to. But then she makes an aside because she doesn't want to actually insult the murderer. And she's like, she didn't have your bone structure. And then they pan to the mom out in the audience and the mom's like, looking very proud of her daughter and her bone structure. And I'm like, I love that. Even though we're about to reveal that this woman is like a cold-blooded murderer, we still have this moment of like women supporting women here.
My favorite women supporting women moment in that scene is when Elle says, like, she speaks to Chutney, I think is the girl's name. He's like, Chutney, why is it that Tracy Marcinko lost her curls when she was hosed down? And one of her friends who's watching gets so excited and raises her hand and pulls the gum out of her mouth like she's gonna answer this question like she's in a class. And she's just like, oh, I know this one! I get where you're going! And this is so exciting! And she can, like, understand what Elle's about to do, and I just love that. And it's something about, like, she raises her hand and then actually pulls the gum out of her mouth like she's gonna answer is so cute. But also, like, a moment of support, like, oh my god, I know what she's doing, this is so cool! And
so,
it's great.
The last couple paragraphs from Mandy, she writes, I want it to be with Elle, enjoying her flamboyant style and quirky intelligence. I want it to be happy that she ditched the lame guy and found someone who loved her for something other than her looks. But Hollywood is obsessed with shaping women's lives by the ideals of men and marriage, and even more so by their innate ability to squeeze women and storylines into tight-fitting conventions wrapped in happy pastel packaging. But hey, I guess a gal can't live with just a chihuahua her whole life.
Yeah, no, I think she really missed the point here, and if she wants to be making these points, she needs to provide a lot more specific evidence, because it does not match up with the movie as
it doesn't match up with it for me either. It reminded me of this discussion we had in my Victorian literature and feminist theory class during our MFA program. And we were talking about the dichotomy that really emerges with feminism in the 80s, where it's that virgin versus whore kind of idea, where, like, basically the idea that feminism kind of was the 80s is like the sexual revolution, right? So it kind of becomes this idea that female empowerment is based on sexual empowerment. And, like, maybe before that, with, like, the very first wave of feminists, it was a little bit more like women as these, like, virginal goddesses on a pedestal who should be cherished. You know, and so somebody in the class, when we're reading these texts from this time period and discussing about these two different opposing ideas of feminism, somebody raised their hand and was kind of like, so, like, what do, like, as young women now, what do we do? Like, what is the right path? What is the right thing to do? And there's kind of this really heavy moment of silence across the entire classroom. And I think this was an all-female class.
Ooh, there's a great, I don't really watch Big Mouth anymore, but when I did, there's a moment where I don't even remember what they're fighting about, but they're fighting about something about, like, women's bodies or whatever, and the two friends, they're still yelling at each other, but they realize that they have, like, in their screaming at each other, come to the same, like, point of understanding. And one of the friends yells, well, what do we do about it? And the other friend goes, I guess we just keep having these conversations! And it's like, and then they calm down and it's like, yeah, actually, I guess we just keep having the tough conversations.
Yeah, the other thing that I think about too, and I mean, I did not have my thoughts together enough to make this defense in that class, sadly, but thinking about it in hindsight, I think the idea of the virginal goddess versus the sexual revolution dominatrix is also operating on this dichotomy that is very present in patriarchal societies, that stems all the way from the idea of male versus female, this gender dichotomy where you are this or you are that. And so I also think the real problem is, you know, looking back on this scholarship from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, is you're still operating along this very traditionally patriarchal dichotomy of your choices are one or the other, instead of accepting that the reality for most women is actually way more complicated than that. Or and that for most women too, those ideas are kind of projected onto them instead of anything reflecting their real experiences. And, you know, now this makes me think of the Ingrid Bergman quote where she talks about how she's been the virgin and the whore and back to the virgin again. And she's kind of like, I don't care anymore.
You tell him,
So
Ingrid.
that's the end of my reviews. Do you have any final thought before your treat?
I'm just realizing I did not prepare any tarot cards for this.
Tarot. Belle, I was going to ask you, what's our tarot today?
I'm just realizing, like, final thoughts would include that. I think, actually, just off the cuff, I would give Elle Woods the Hierophant. Or the Hierophant is sometimes. It's often a symbol, like, in very traditional, like, stories of, like, the arc of the Triumph cards. It's the representation of, like, the individual moving out from under the umbrella of, like, their, like, life or, like, the community, like, the religion usually they've been inside of, and discovering and understanding things on their own, which is absolutely what I think Elle does in this movie. And I think it is perfectly encapsulated in the moment where she is talking to her parents about going to law school. And she's sitting in the pool, because what else do you do in LA? And telling them that she wants to go to law school, and she says that it's it's a perfectly respectable place, Daddy. And her mom says something like, you were like a runner-up in this pageant, why are you gonna throw that all away? And she just kind of is rolling her eyes, and her father says, law school is for people who are boring and ugly and serious, and you're none of those things. And
Does he say, and you pumpkin?
And you, pumpkin, are none of those things. That's it, yeah.
With his martini.
And one of my favorite bits is this conversation is actually displayed in the musical, in like inside of there's like a whole song montage where she's like preparing to go to school and she's talking to her parents about it. And he describes it, he's like, you don't want to go to the East Coast, it's cold and dark, there's no valet parking, and all the girls have different noses. Anyway,
oh my god.
And so it's this moment of like she kind of pushes herself away from the edge of the pool to kind of float and just sort of think about what her parents have said, and you don't like see it happening in the context of the movies, and like she doesn't say to them like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway, but it immediately cuts to then her studying for the LSAT, making her application video, doing all of the things that, even though her parents have been like, this is not what we do, this is not what you do, you're supposed to, stay here and get married and have a fabulous, wealthy, beautiful life like we do. And she, in her actions, decides, no, she's not going to do that. So I think I would give her the Hierophant, and that's the moment where I think it all really starts happening for her.
I love it. So, are you ready for the special treat I promised in the beginning of this episode?
Yes, is this the blonde translator? Is that?
Yes,
oh,
which
God,
no
okay.
longer exists, but I found a loophole around it not existing.
Okay.
I asked ChatGPT, do you know what the blonde translator was? And ChatGPT did know. And so then I said, can you give me an example of what the blonde translator did? Like, give me the national anthem lyrics as the blonde translator would.
Oh my god.
And so ChatGPT replied, sure. Here's a playful but respectful example of how a blonde translator might have transformed the U.S. national anthem based on how it was typically used in early 2000s internet humor with exaggerated Valley Girl or stereotypical ditzy blonde speech. Again, this is meant as a parody of the old meme, not a reflection of real people. Thank you, ChatGPT.
They're like, the AI open people are like, we are not getting sued today.
Yeah. This translation is replete with emojis.
Oh. Hang on. There's a cat meowing underneath me. Let me pick him up so he won't mess with the audio. Come here.
So, the Star-Spangled Banner blonde translator version. Heart sparkle emojis. Alright, so give me it 2 lines at a time, like the original and then the blonde translator version. So the first 2 lines, oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. It translated as, I'll point out, I don't think this actually fits into the music anymore, but it's still funny. Alright, blonde translator version. OMG, can you, like, see it? That super cute flag thingy in the morning sparkle time. We were totally cheering for it last night when the sky got all moody and dark. Nail polish emoji, sparkle emoji.
Oh my god.
Would you like the next two lines?
Oh, sure.
Right, the original is, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the blonde version is, it had, like, major fashion vibes, stripes, and sparkles, even during all that scary loud boom boom stuff. We were watching from behind those, like, wall thingies. Super intense.
Super intense.
Okay. All right, so original line. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Blonde version. The sky totally lit up with, like, red glitter explosions. And we were like, yes, queen, the flag is still slaying.
I'm just picturing Alana from Broad City doing the, yes, queen.
Yeah. All right, last two lines. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Blonde version. So, is our sparkly flag still doing its thing over the land of, like, freedom and totally fierce heroes? Nail polish. Flex. American flag.
Oh, God, no.
And then ChatGPT said, let me know if you'd like other translations in that style. It's a fun nostalgia trip through early internet humor.
I'm glad ChatGPT was enjoying itself.
Me too. I'm so glad the robot had fun. So I said, remember the beginning of this, we decided to do school-themed movies all because of an episode I listened to on fascism and how it attacks education. So I put the article about Trump telling Harvard it has to kick out all of its international students into the blonde translator.
Yeah?
Are you ready for this?
I don't think I'll ever be truly ready, but go ahead.
Oh my gosh. So, like, here's the tea on Harvard and President Trump. It's, like, totally dramatic right now. Grab your popcorn, babe. Harvard versus Trump, the ultimate showdown. So, like, Harvard is this super fancy school, right? And Trump is, like, not vibing with them lately. He's all like, you guys are, like, 31% foreign and not telling me who you are. Like, what? Harvard's like, we're not your personal data bank. Thanks. Then Trump was like, I'm going to take away $3 billion in funding. And Harvard was like, no, you won't. So they went to court and a judge was like, hold up, not so fast. International students caught in the middle. Okay, so Harvard has, like, a ton of international students. They're from all over, like 31% of the student body. And Trump's all like, I need to know who they are and what they're doing. And Harvard's like, nope, not happening. So Trump was like, fine.
That's a FERPA violation,
so Trump was like,
Trump.
Fine, I'll just take away your funding. But then a judge was like, no, you won't. And Harvard was like, told you so.
Told you so. Oh my God.
Harvard's big move. So Harvard's like, we're not going to let you mess with our students. They told international students, you can, like, accept offers from, like, other schools just in case things get messy. They're basically saying, we got your back, fam. What's next?
Back, fam.
All right, so the conclusion of this article is, what's next? Honestly, who knows? It's like a reality show, but with more politics and less drama. Stay tuned, babes. This saga is far from over. Television emoji, nail polish emoji.
Oh my God.
Let me know if you want more
babes.
updates or, like, a recap of the last episode.
ChatGPT, you're having too much fun.
Okay, maybe we end it there. Do you have any concluding thoughts about Legally Blonde and its critical reception?
It's worth so much more than people gave it credit for. You know, just, I think we can sum it up with the, I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods can be, and she fucking tore the house down. And I'm gonna have all of the songs from this movie stuck in my head all week. We also had the soundtrack, like a CD of the soundtrack. And I listened to it a lot.
I have a concluding statement about just how valuable Elle Woods can be. According to the New York Times, as of June 2024, Harvard had a $53.2 billion endowment. They have the best law school, and they have Elle Woods. And if Elle could solve a murder case with her knowledge of perms, imagine what she could do if Trump and his toupee took the stand.
Oh, shit! Mic drop.
On the dark side, shine the light. You can try, but
You can find your Silver Nitrate Witches on various online platforms at LJ Valenza and at Bellang303. Thanks so much to Fine Motor. You can check out more about the band at finemotormusic.com. Thanks for listening. Stay witchy and keep watching movies.